Here we are in the Brooklyn Botanic Garden. This is one of my favorite places to be in New York City, and we're going to talk to them about how they do their seed starting. You've seen how Eric does his seed starting. We're going to come here and see how the professionals do it. So let's go. So we're here this morning at the Brooklyn Botanic Garden with Monica, and Monica's going to talk about how they do their seed starting and how they grow plants, which is probably much better than how I do it. So we thought we'd come to the experts, and Monica's going to give us a bit of a tour here and a little how-to, and I think you'll enjoy it. So here we go.
Well, welcome to our education greenhouse. This is a space that we use for children and adults who are involved in our education programs here at the garden. We grow plants here from seed, we grow plants from cuttings, and we have various plants for display for our programs. So what we'll be doing today is starting out by planting some vegetable and flower seeds to transplant into our children's garden. We have some seeds which include pepper and tomatoes and larkspur. These are very popular vegetable plants, which you're probably all familiar with, and they grow out in the children's garden during the summer, but we start them ahead of time here in the education greenhouse. As they grow into their seedling state, we transplant them into the garden after the last frost has passed.
How do you determine when the last frost is?
Well, there's a general range of dates depending on your climate zone that you're in. The climate zone for New York City in our region is May 15th is our last frost date, and we are in climate zone 6B. We consider generally May 15th, after any date after May 15th, to be safe for planting.
It's safe to take them outside after May 15th.
Exactly.
All right, thank you.
Well, let's get started with the tomatoes to start out with. Tomato seeds are very small, and there are not many seeds per packet. So we plant them very carefully in our containers. This is a seed starting tray. You can see it has good drainage, and it's a pretty lightweight container, very flexible. And this is the seedling mix that we use. It's a very lightweight potting mix. It has a combination of bark, perlite, vermiculite, lightweight potting materials so that they don't overpower the seeds, but that they provide a nice firm bed for the seeds to grow in.
I've never heard of using bark in it. Is that a secret recipe thing, or is that?
It's not really a secret recipe. People are using bark more and more these days as an alternative to peat, which is an unsustainable material that has traditionally been used in potting mixes. We do have some peat that we use in certain containers, especially for our tropical and aquatic plants, but we're trying to get away from it because it's not as sustainably harvested. And bark is ubiquitous, found everywhere around here. So.
I use the compressed coconut fiber bricks that you soak in water and they explode.
Great, yeah, those are terrific too. Coconut fiber and coconut core is a heavier material like peat and is better for heavier plants, for tropical plants that like more water, because the core actually absorbs water and holds onto it more like a sponge. Whereas the bark is a lot more lightweight and allows for more drainage. It has bigger chunks and so allows for more pore space.
So I should start using bark is what you tell me.
For seed starting, bark is the way to go because it's the most lightweight and easiest to work with.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm filling my container about 3/4 of the way here, spreading it smooth with my fingers. And I'm going to start out by just broadcasting these tomato seeds right across the top. You can see they're smaller seeds. The smaller the seed, the less deeply it has to be planted. So the very tiniest seeds, some of our really small seeds, basil, even smaller seeds like orchids, actually just get broadcast across the surface of the soil and left just like this to grow. Because these are slightly larger, I'm going to take a small layer of potting mix and just gently cover them up, about 1/4 inch or so. So they're just slightly covered. Spread them across the surface, just barely covered.
So like a lightly tamping it down?
Exactly, lightly tamping it down. The idea of covering them a little bit helps to stabilize them. Some of the seeds that are just dropped on the surface of the soil as they're watered, the seeds are likely to wash away. So covering them just a slight amount with soil helps to hold them in place. We use these small seedling watering cans when we're growing seeds because it has a very fine-tuned nozzle and it doesn't pour out water. I water them pretty well to start out with. Give them a good soak. From then on, you want to keep the moisture at a relatively stable level. You don't want them to get too dry or stay too wet. So I take a look at them about every day and just test the soil with my finger. If it feels steady, then I don't water it. And if it starts to feel a bit dry, I give it a good douse of water. Make sure to water your seedlings enough so that the water drains through the bottom drainage holes, just like that. Some plants, actually, tomato and pepper plants, really like to stay warm in addition to staying wet for germination. So we have this heating mat that we place many of the seeds on.
It's like an electric blanket?
Exactly, an electric blanket that has heating coils underneath. We keep our tomatoes and our pepper plants at about 75 degrees. And you can adjust the heating mat thermostat to a certain temperature. Put this at 75. And then take our temperature probe.
Oh, wow.
And put our temperature probe right in here. So it'll help keep and regulate the temperature of the seeds. Seeds like to be warm and they like to be wet in order to germinate.
I have to get one of these
yes,
seedling tray mat things.
These are really convenient. They're not necessary for all seedlings, but most seedlings that are started indoors in greenhouse really like to be warm. So it helps to speed up the germination rate, and it makes for stronger seedlings in the long run. This is a low-tech way to find out what the temperature of your soil is. Indoors, if you don't have fancy equipment like heating mats and temperature regulators, you can just place your seedling tray near a warm source, maybe in your kitchen, on top of your refrigerator. We actually planted these tomato seedlings directly in these containers. So you don't need to start plants in seedling trays. It's helpful to just spread out the seeds and transplant, but they can be done in any sort of container as long as they have appropriate drainage holes. And you can see these tomato plants have been growing for about 2 months now. And we have 3 seedlings in the container, and if they keep growing, they're going to outcompete each other. None of them will grow well because they're so busy competing for nutrients and soil and space. So what we're going to do in this container is remove probably 2 of the 3 seedlings.
And sacrifice 2? Sacrifice
2, exactly. I'm going to sacrifice the slower growing ones because it looks like this tallest one is dark green, healthy leaves, doing really well. This one looks like it's not doing quite as well. And this one, although it's hanging in there, you might want to transplant it if you're really interested in holding on to it. But for our case, since we have plenty of tomato plants growing, I'm actually just going to remove these 2 seedlings. So the way I would do it is not actually by pulling out the entire seedling from the roots, but actually pinching back with my fingers and just removing them from removing the stem.
Yeah, there you go.
And I left the roots in the container because if I were to pull them out, it might actually damage the roots from the tomato plant that I'd like to hold on to. So this is a safe way to remove plants without risking damage. Here's a container that just had this single tomato growing in it the whole time. You can see it's doing really well. As it continues to grow, it will spread out more roots, and you'll start to see small roots coming out from the bottom drainage holes. As soon as you see roots coming out of the drainage holes, you'll know it's trying to transplant your tomato into a larger container. After you're finished planting your seeds, it's easy to forget what you've planted. So it's really important to make a label. We use plastic labels, but you can make them out of wood or even cardboard with the name of the plant that you grew and today's date.
That would be more organized than I could be.